Hey, Hans from Request for Music here. I'm going to create sort of a series, a patch from scratch, and this is going to be the first one. So I'll just be building whatever. I have no clue what it's going to be. There are some things that I always start with when I'm working within my FSyn universe. I don't know exactly how I should call that, but with all of the modules that I have within my FSyn bundle or separate, but all in the same FSyn ecosystem, so to speak. So the first thing that I always I always have to cough when I do this. I have no idea why. The first thing that I do is I take in a mixer because I want to put some signal in, and I have set this to align modules to auto align left because I just want to keep it neat and tidy. So I have my mixer. So I can just mix stereo signals, and the mixer itself is just 8 channels with a global setting, and I've got a solo and a mute button per channel, and I have a panorama and a panorama modulation part, and I have the overall volume, and I can take any of those channels out of that mix, so to speak. And of course the stereo input, and when I just put in the mono left channel, it just treats it as a mono signal, and I can then pan it over the channels. So I take a mixer, and I'm going to take my reverb, and I'm going to take in a delay. I always like that. So just take that to begin with, and I'll just take the stereo output from. I've hidden the cables, which I can do here on the top. So I like that best, because otherwise it's going to get very messy, and although it's a great song by Lola Young, I don't like that to be in my videos, so I switch the visual off for the cables. So anyway, it's going to go from the mixer into delay, from the delay into the reverb. It's just a sequential kind of thing, and I go from my left output into my main output to the host here. So then I have my signals, and my delays are switched off to begin with, so I switch them on and I give it all of the volume that I need, and I'm going to drop back the wet settings for the delay and for the reverb to not overdo it straight away. And I'll what shall I do? I'll take my Prism out, because I do like that at the moment. Prism is an oscillator which is, well, a bit different. It's not really that different, but it's self-contained. So you have a pitch input, you have a velocity and a gate input, because you can use the gate to drive the envelope which is in here, but that's switched off normally. And for the rest, it has a transpose, an emotion, a width, fold, and resonance. So that means that if I take this out and I take this into my mix, you already hear something. I'll dial it up, and you hear that it's now sounding all the time. Let's take this back, because what emotion does is there's a couple of oscillators in here, and you sort of change the sort of chaotic behavior, and that can go all the way up, and it sort of shifts back again and then goes a bit wider up, so that you hear that the oscillator is doing a bit strange things. The next thing is the width of those oscillators, so you can detune that, and you don't really hear that, but once I set the width setting here, you'll hear that it spreads over the stereo image. So that's something that you can do with the width. And then the folding is folding the wave itself on itself, so you get differences in frequency spectrum that the oscillators are giving, and the resonance is sort of a filter that's changing the response sort of resonator in there. And all of those have a modulation possibilities, where you have an input and you have a knob behind it with which you can set the amount of modulation that you give it. So that means that if I'm going to use that, I probably want to have an LFO in there as well. And I have, because it was based, the complete system was based on the Foreman synthesizer, which had modules that had one height, so one of those spaces up. So I also have one with only one, but most of the time, if I need more modulations, I'll take the one with the 2 settings in there. So I've got this where I have 6 oscillators and 6 oscillators with 3 outputs each. So yeah, I've got 18 outputs to work with if I want it. So I can use it like this, and let's dial this up even more to make the sound more pronounced. And I'm going to switch the envelope on. So now it only works if I have my pitch connected and if I have my gate connected to the Prism. And as you can hear, I have my delay and reverb on. So we've got something like this, and obviously I can lengthen my tone. I have attack, decay, sustain, release. My sustain is at full level, so that means that it's going to keep a note as long as I have my key pressed on my keyboard. You don't see that at the moment, but believe me when I say I'm just pressing the key. And it's keeping that, and if I wanted that different if I wanted that different, I would dial back my sustain and change my decay. So now it will go down to the lowest value of the sustain while pressing the key, and then goes into the release phase. So if I dial this back all the way and dial back my decay, you hear that it's now going to full stop. As soon as I have it still pressed. But especially when I want to hear the differences in folding and resonance and stuff like that, I would probably want to pick an LFO to modulate this. But then I will need a longer sound to let you hear that. So I've got that, and now I can set my, I can dial this up, and here is working. I'll dial my LFO back a bit so it's not that fast. And it's added to the setting of that knob at that moment. So if I do something like this, it takes a bit longer to work with that. And I could do the same with my folding, with my resonance as well. So let's take a faster one. So yeah, that's already quite a difference in sound that you can get that way. So, well, maybe I want this to be my melody, and let's take a sequencer out. And where do I have it? I overlook it. There it is. So I'll take a sequencer out. I'll put that in the bottom row. I'll dial this up a bit so you can still see that probably. Where am I? No, you can't see it, so I'll have to change this up a bit. Something like this. Okay, so the sequencer, 16-step sequencer, and I can set how many steps you can use from 2 up to 16, and all of them can be dialed up and at a specific speed and a transpose setting, and you see that there are lights there, so that means that if I switch it on, it's going to go through all of those selected steps. So at the moment I've got 10 steps if you wanted something like that, and otherwise just dial it back to 8, for instance. And it has a pitch output, a gate output, and an accent output. And the accents are actually the small buttons here on the bottom, or the LEDs on the bottom, which I can switch on or off to create something. So, well, I could maybe I just, well, let's take a harmonics actually out. A harmonics, which is an oscillator or a thing with 64 oscillators in there, but you can decide yourself how many you want. As you see, I've created all of those modules to sort of fit underneath each other, so it's all in a sort of standard size. I have a 1 size, a 2 size, or 1 width, 2 width, 3 width, and the latest module that I created, Auras, is even a 6 width thing that will show you the visual of the spectrum. So if I connect this up, oops, where am I? Hey, what did I do wrong there? Oh, sure, my bad. I tried to connect it to the wrong. This is an input, not an output. And obviously those are differences. You have inputs and you have outputs, and the one will not show the other. As you see, this is now looking at frequencies and amplitudes. So I set it to log, so I have a wider sort of image. You see that the frequencies are recognized by auras, and it dies out if there are no frequencies. I'll take my brightness down a bit. Can go up a bit. So you see that the place itself shows you where the frequencies are, but just to show you, but I'll take it out for now. I'm going to use my harmonics, and I'm going to put my pitch in there, and I'm going to put gate in there into harmonics from my sequencer, and I'm going to take the output and going to put that into my mix. And since I've placed my delay and my reverb after my mix, and then took the reverb out to the main out, it means that all of the sound going into the mixer uses the same delay and reverb. If I want something different, I could easily hook that up in between. So I'll take this, and the point is that if I connect this harmonics up, you actually hear a rumble because it's waiting for the first gate, but it lets you hear that it's available. So if I click this, let's see, I've got it hooked up. I've got my pitch very low at the moment for all of these, and I have my global tune low on my harmonics, so I'll switch that up to 2 octaves, so I hear this. And now if I press play, it's going to take these, and you see that it's going through in quite a high tempo, so I'll take this down, and it's only using 1 harmonic. It's set to flat, which is the behavior for the amplitude of all of the harmonics. You can actually switch this on and look and switch any of those 64 oscillators on, and the way in that the frequencies behave for all of those harmonics are based on the frequency scale that you can set. And this is set to harmonic at the moment, but you can set it to any of those settings here, which means that the ratio between those frequencies differ. That's just between those 64 harmonics in that module. So there was some how do I say that, misunderstanding about that frequency scale. You cannot use that to change the incoming pitch or the pitch from the outside. It only uses that pitch and then changes the the ratio to all of the rest of the frequencies. So the first harmonic, number 0, is always going to take the pitch that's coming in, and otherwise all of the other ones might behave different. And let's switch the overall envelope on, actually. So that means that this is going to change the behavior. So if I now take something like this, you'll hear that this sound is coming up. And if I, for instance, go into my select part where I can choose all of the harmonics, and I have to change to set on if I want to override what is in there, I could select all. Now all of the harmonics are selected, and this flat thing was the amount of, or the difference between the different amplitudes. I've set it back to sawtooth because in a sawtooth setting, let's switch this off for a while. In a sawtooth setting, there's a different kind of amplitude ratio between all of the harmonics in there. So I get sort of a sawtooth sound. So I got that now, and let's switch it on again. And now I can let you hear what that harmonic does, because now it's at harmonic. But for instance, if I set it to unison, actually all of the frequencies are the same, although I can obviously change the detuning. But if I set it to something like golden ratio, the ratio between the frequencies are different, and you get a different kind of sound that way. So if you wanted to create sort of bell-like sounds, you'll just have to play around with these settings and pick something. There's all kinds of ratios in there that really sound different. So just play around with that, and you'll hear that. I'll go back to my normal setting of basic, where I only start off with one selected harmonic. The thing is, I want this to sound a bit more synthesizer-like. It's only has a sine wave, although I can set my sound to a sawtooth, for instance, or a square or a triangle. I'll keep it at sine for now because I want to modulate it by itself, and I do that by using this modulation matrix list, or whatever you call it, and I can take a source index, and the index is the number within that list. You see number 0 up to 63, so that's 64 oscillators. I'm going to take number 0, and I'm going to use the source, any of those sources that I have here. You see an envelope, pitch, output, envelope, output, LFO, because there's a built-in LFO. You see all of these external inputs, all of those external inputs here, and some other stuff in there. I'm going to take the envelope out. That means that it's going to look at the envelope output of each oscillator itself, or each harmonic itself, or whatever you call it. So I'm going to take that, and I have sources and I have targets. I'm going to send it to itself, and I'm going to send it to its phase input. So that means that I'm going to actually sort of create a sort of DX7, which was phase modulation, instead of F frequency modulation. And I'm going to send that here, and then I have my add, update, and remove buttons on top. So if I add this to it, it's get added to that list, and I can dial my depth up, and you can hear I get a difference in sound. So if I want to keep this as sort of a bass sound, now I can just I'll switch these off for now. You won't hear a difference because I'm not using the accent out, but now I can just dial up. And I could, for instance, go back to 2 to first of all listen to what this does. So I'll just dial a bit. Yeah, so maybe I like this. Okay, so now I've got something like a basis for this, and now I can dial all my decay and all that kind of stuff. And I also have my gate length that I can change, and that also affects the attack, decay, sustain, release. So let's leave it at this. So now I'm playing my Prism together with that, and I don't like that very fast speed on this resonance. So I'll take that out and change that a bit. So I'll take the speeds on both a bit lower even. And now I can just play around with either emotion and width to change that sound a bit. And obviously I could still place a filter behind that if I want to take stuff out or in, or an equalizer or whatever. Yeah, I want to have some background in this kind of stuff. So I could, for instance, take my cells out. Cells is a reasonably new module that creates sort of generative parts in there, and it's based on the what was it called again? Game of Life generation program that is created somewhere in the 70s or in 1970 even, by someone who was a math scientist or whatever, and he created that program, and I've used that system to create these kind of things. So that means that if I take the output out of this and I'll put that into my mix as well, it's going to create sounds, and it's going to do that by if I reset, it's going to put new sounds in there. So and obviously I can change the volume of this, and I've actually added labels to this mixer, so that means that this one, for instance, let's solo this one, for instance, this is now cells. So if I double click that, I can just put cells there so I know what it is, and this was my Prism lead, so to speak. So if I take that one, this was my Prism lead, and this is my sequence, my bass sequence or whatever. Because I could still take this out. I could obviously take this transpose down, or take my Harmonics transpose down. So take that down and maybe dial my depth up. Now let's take this cells, and I could actually take this reset, which creates a new generation of cells. I could take that and put that into my gate, and then it would do it every time when this is generated, and it will change it every time. And obviously you still have settings like dense and speed and pitch and offset and whatever, and you also have sort of a, let's set this to minor, because then it uses sort of or it takes it and keeps it within a certain range. I could also take it to to pentatonic. Maybe that's even better. And I have to switch my quantize on then to use that. So you hear it keeps a bit better within that range. And I could do it like this. Also, what I could do is, instead of taking it from the gate out, I could instead take that cable, put it in my accent, because now it's looking at if I have any of those buttons pressed. So now I can do it at different timings. So I got something like this, and that's all good and well. I might even like actually the other one better, so let's take it out of the accent and put it into the gate again. But maybe I want this shorter, and there's nothing in there that can create that, can change the length of that. It just gets generated again, and the generation itself is creating the length of the sound. So instead I would probably have would want to use an amplifier. So I'll take my double VCA, because it's a stereo signal. I want double signal going in there, so for each of those outputs. So instead of taking the output of cell straight into the mixer, I'm going to put this into the output of both of these amplifiers. They're both mono amplifiers, and I have to drive them separately. So I'm going to take my output and put that into the input, and going to put that into that output or input. So I've got this, and I can drive this up if I wanted more signal from that. But I wanted to change the length of this. So instead of going straight from the VCA, I want to change the length of the sound of the VCA. So for that, I'm going to use my MSEG. MSEG is also a reasonably new module that is creating, or can be used as an ADSR, but also as an LFO and all that kind of stuff. So instead of going straight out, I'm still going to reset this, but I'm also going to take my gate out of my sequencer and drive this, and then I'm going to take the output of this and going to put that into both of my VCAs. Then I have to switch that input on. Now you hear that it's shortening the sound. That's because of my ADSR here. So, and I can actually change the length, and I can also, first of all, have it follow and look how long it is. You see that it's very short sound, so I can change my timing back so I have more impact. Oh, it's nice. It's best to leave it longer. But yeah, this is driving that amplitude, and MSEG itself has, it has more points that I can use, and I have these are the tops of the nodes of the lines that are switched in between. Maybe it's best to take it longer, so I am indeed going to use the gate there. So yeah, let's take those out for a while and use my accent instead for both of these. So that means that this is now going to drive that reset, right? So that's creating those cells, or those cell generation. Now I want to have a look at my MSEG, because now this is far too short. So I have my follow on, but you don't really see where it is. So let's set the timing. Do I have this? Okay. I'll switch to loop, and and I'm going to take this out. I want this to be driven by itself for a while. So I'm going to change the length so I still see where it's going. But I'm going to have this behave separately from the cells. So you see that length is going and this is where the end lies. But I still can change how this behaves. So I'll dial up my... So this for instance would mean that it's, and let's take the time down even more. This is the volume, right? So it's starting at almost maximum volume, then it's going down, and then it's going to get it up. But since I can actually draw extra dots in there by pressing my shift key and taking that in and doing something like this. So I could do stuff like that, which changes the amplitude behavior all the time, and I actually have presets in there that do such a thing, like Wretched Rush. Now let's see if I can use this accent. Now it's behaving by using this step, right? So it's taking the gates and it's synced again to the rest. So now I've got this, and I can actually scroll into this if I want to, or zoom into it to look at it, and I'll switch off my follow because then it's easier to scroll through, because I actually want to have this behavior doing something like going back in volume afterwards. So I take these spikes and dial them back a bit. Oops. And I could go the other way around if I wanted. And maybe I want a different kind of sounds than just using the Prism, and I could use a normal oscillator, because, of course, just I mean, I have a normal standard oscillator where the standard oscillator has sort of a spiked sawtooth, but also a normal sawtooth and a square and a sine wave, a triangle wave and a sine wave, that I can even switch all of them on to create different sort of sounds. But maybe it's best for me now to use my draw wave, where the draw wave behaves different again, because you can create your own waves. So I hook this up to my pitch and to my just the pitch is enough. I was looking at something different, which it has a sync input if you want to sync it to any other sound, and that means that if I take the output of this, it's not going to let you listen to anything because there's no sound in there, but I can draw my own shapes. So as soon as I draw any line in there, you can hear that it's actually going to take that output. And I have a couple of presets in there, so if I wanted a normal sawtooth, I could do that, or a normal triangle. And let's take a triangle, because I want some Tangerine Dream kind of sound, which most of the time is indeed a triangle. But then it is not stopping by itself. So in this case I also need a VCA and an MSEG or something, or a normal ADSR. But I'm going to take my MSEG again. So I'm going to take a VCA, just need one, because I'm only going straight from the draw wave into the input of this taking this into my output, and I've got that again. And actually, if you want to have a bit more bite, you can actually use a drive in the VCA to change the sound a bit. I'm going to take my MSEG again, and I'm going to use the gate of my normal output there. I'm going to take my output into my VCA's input. So and I'm going to give it a slightly more delay by itself. So I'm going to use an extra delay and going to place that between my VCA and my mix. So I'm going to take that here into my left, and actually I can use a stereo output from that, because as soon as it has a signal, and I have to switch this on and dial it up, I can actually take that out and use it stereo anyway. So let's dial it up. Give it a slightly more, maybe the output here as well. But you hear that the MSEC in itself is shortening, or it's changing the sound, and you see that the attack phase, the first phase, is longer. So. And the delay could be longer, so dial that up, maybe even stronger. A bit slower. Okay, so I want to change this sound. Most of the time those Tangerine Dream sounds, they stick longer, so yeah, it's pretty easy to have this kind of stuff. And well, just to let you listen to even a stranger one, I created Birds yesterday. Birds is just a module creating bird sounds. So if I take this output and put that into my mix, I'm getting bird sounds. And those birds, they will just work by themselves, but you can actually trigger it at specific points where you want that yourself. And with this you can set the interval between the calling bird and the replying birds, because there's a difference in those. And you can set the mode and how it reacts. It's now set to automatic, so that it uses its internal trigger to change that. So you hear you now this. Let's switch this. So first of all, let's give this a name. And just mute my bass. So I only have my cells and I have my birds on. Again, I just want, if I want to do something ambient kind of thing, I could actually create that from this already. If I put my bass on again and I don't let it be this fast, I'll just dial my speed back and oh, wrong one, sorry. Let's take this loop out because it was still looping the MSEC actually. And now I could probably take this normal output instead of driving this to drive the cells separately. I'll take this out and I can actually use my shift key to use both cables and place them into the gate now again. And probably I want less depth there, and maybe I want more reverb on the overall sound. And switch the lead on. So something like that, and maybe if I wanted this sound to be more expressive, I could change my pitch by using my modulation wheel output. And for that I'm going to take a mixer module in. So the mixer module, and I'll put that in front of this. Mixer module lets you add, amplify, or modulo, a divide, yes, or sort of the remainder kind of thing, that it calculates from any 3 inputs to any 1 output. So if I take this value, for instance, if I don't put an input in there, it just amplifies it. So if I instead take my modulator or my mod wheel input there, and I take an LFO input here, and I take both of them out to my pitch, it will now be, if I have my mod wheel dialed up, you can hear that it's changing the pitch. So I want my frequency up, and now I want to dial this back. I have my mod wheel all the way up at the moment, so let's something like this, but it means that now if I let's dial the frequency down a bit and dial a bit on this, so and let's take my delay, my initial delay, which is connected to my draw wave. I'll lengthen the time of my MSEG. So anyway, that's how I go about creating patches. So this is the first in a series of patch from scratch, and I'll hopefully see you back in the next one. So I'll take this down. So cheers for now. See you later. Bye bye.